Imagine walking down a dimly lit street late at night. The moon is high, casting a pale, unnatural white glow over the black water pooled in the gutters of the tarmac. A thick mist is beginning to roll in, swallowing the glow of the streetlights. You turn to walk down a narrow alleyway, and suddenly, a shadow steps out of the mist. It's a tall woman. She is wearing a long coat. Some say it's yellow, others swear it's a deep crimson red, specifically chosen to hide the blood. Her dark, fox-like eyes lock onto yours. Half of her face is obscured by a white surgical mask. Here, in Japan, wearing a mask for a cold or allergies is incredibly common, so you don't think much of it. She steps directly into your path, blocking your escape. The silence of the night is deafening. And then, she asks you a very simple question. Watashi kirei? Am I beautiful? If you answer no, the encounter ends immediately. She pulls out a concealed weapon, a long pair of medical scissors, a butcher's knife, or a harvesting sickle, and kills you on the spot. But what if you don't want to be rude? What if you answer yes? She slowly reaches up with pale white hands. She grabs the edges of her surgical mask and pulls it down. Your eyes widen in absolute horror. Her cheeks have been violently slashed open from ear to ear, creating a grotesque, blood-dripping, jagged smile. She tilts her head, and in a grisly, distorted voice, she asks her second question. Cordemo? Even now? If you scream in terror, or finally say no, she will butcher you. But if you say yes, if you stare into that horrifying visage and lie, she will raise her scissors, and she will slice the corners of your mouth from ear to ear, making you look exactly like her. Welcome to the terrifying world of Kuchisake-onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. She is not just a ghost story. She is a cultural phenomenon, a psychological mirror, and a nationwide panic that literally forced the Japanese police to patrol the streets. Today, we are going to tear off the mask and uncover the entire bloody history of Japan's most infamous urban legend. To understand Kuchisake-onna, we first need to dissect what she actually is. The word kuchi means mouth. Sak comes from the verb sakeru, meaning to split or tear, and onna means woman. Thus, the slit-mouthed woman, unlike classic monsters that hide in abandoned castles or haunted forests, Kuchisake-onna is an apex predator of the urban jungle. She haunts the liminal spaces of modern society, school zones, bus stops, dimly lit alleys, and commuter routes. She is almost always described as an unnaturally tall woman, standing anywhere from 175 to 180 centimeters, with some exaggerated accounts claiming she is an imposing 8 feet tall. She has long, straight, pitch black hair and incredibly pale skin. The renowned historian and manga author Shigeru Mizuki officially categorized her as a modern yokai, a broad class of supernatural monsters, spirits, and demons in Japanese folklore. But she is not just a passive spirit. She is an Onryō, a vengeful ghost bound to the physical world by a profound, unresolved trauma and a burning desire for revenge. What makes her so uniquely terrifying is the inescapable trap of her encounter. She does just hunt you down. She forces you to participate in a twisted, psychological game show where the prize is your life. And there are no right answers. But where did she come from? To find the origin of that bloody smile, we have to travel back in time, hundreds of years, to an era of samurai and swords. Many people believe Kuchisake-onna is a product of the Valden 970s, but folklorists, including author Matthew Meyer, trace her roots much further back, to Japan's Edo period, which spanned from 1603 to 1867. Legend has it that hundreds of years ago, there lived a woman of immense, breathtaking beauty. She was married to a fierce and powerful samurai warrior. However, her beauty was matched only by her extreme vanity. She would regularly walk the streets of her village during the day, stopping strangers just to ask if they thought she was beautiful, constantly seeking validation, fueled by the endless compliments. She began an illicit affair with a local soldier, but secrets rarely stay buried. When her samurai husband discovered her infidelity, he was consumed by a jealous, violent rage. He drew his blade, cornered his wife, and brutally mutilated her face, carving her mouth open from ear to ear to destroy the beauty she was so incredibly proud of. As she bled, he looked down at her and mockingly asked, "Who will think you are pretty now?" She died from her horrific wounds, but her spirit refused to pass on. She returned as an Onryō, wandering the roads at night with her face hidden behind a cloth mask or a handheld fan. Interestingly, during the Edo period, encounters with a slit-mouthed woman were often brushed off as the mischievous pranks of kitsune. Magical, shape-shifting fox spirits known for tricking young men traveling alone at night. She was a campfire story, a spooky tale shared by literary clubs on hot summer nights to send a chill down the spine. For centuries, she was just a ghost of the past. But in the late 20th century, the slit-mouthed woman would rise from the dead, trade her kimono for a red trench coat, and bring the entire nation of Japan to its knees. Let's fast forward to December 1978. In the rural farming town of Yatsu in Gifu Prefecture, a rumor began to spread. An elderly woman claimed she looked out into her garden and saw a terrifying figure standing in the shadows, a woman with her mouth slit wide open. This single spark ignited a blazing wildfire. The local newspaper, the Gifu Nikki-Nichi Shinbun, printed an article about the legend on the 26th of January 1979. Soon, massive weekly magazines like Shukan Asahi and Shukan Shincho picked up the story. By the summer of 1979, what started as a rural whisper had mutated into a full-blown, nationwide hysteria. According to some reports, 99% of Japanese children knew her name. This was just an internet creepypasta before the internet existed. This was a physical panic. Children were terrified to walk home. The fear was so intense that educational authorities issued official warnings. Schools organized teacher-escorted walking groups, and the parent-teacher associations required adults to accompany kids home. In cities like Koriyama in Fukushima Prefecture and Hiratsuka in Kanagawa Prefecture, the threat was taken so seriously that actual police units were dispatched in squad cars specifically to hunt down the woman with the scissors. But why did the adults believe it? Why did parents call the cops over a ghost story? Because the real world had already primed them for terror. Just a few years earlier, in 1976, Japan witnessed the execution of Kiyoshi Okubo, a brutal real-life serial killer whose youngest victim was only 16 years old. The collective trauma of a real murderer stalking the innocent was still fresh in the minds of parents. When their children came home crying about a tall woman wielding a sickle and a knife in the alleyways, adults didn't see a ghost. They saw the next serial killer. Furthermore, Japan was changing. It was an era of rapid urbanization. Children were increasingly attending late night juku, or cram schools, forcing them to walk home alone in the dark through anonymous, sprawling city streets. The panic reached a bizarre climax in June or July of 1979, when police in Haimaiji, Hyogo Prefecture, actually arrested the Slit-Mouthed Woman. Well, sort of. They arrested a 25-year-old woman who was wandering the streets wearing a surgical mask and carrying a kitchen knife in what might be the most ill-advised prank in Japanese history. The newspapers quickly declared the panic over, but validating a myth with a real-life arrest only cemented Kuchisake-onna into the permanent folklore of Japan. If running is impossible, and fighting a supernatural entity is a death sentence, how do you survive an encounter with Kuchisake-onna? Over the decades, Japanese schoolchildren developed a complex set of survival rules, a tactical playbook to beat the ghost at her own game. Because her terror relies on trapping you in a binary yes or no question, the most effective strategy is to break her psychological loop. When she asks, "Am I beautiful?" the best defense is to answer with neutrality. Tell her she looks average, normal, or simply so-so. This non-committal answer creates a cognitive glitch in the ghost's mind. Confused by the lack of a definitive judgment, she will fall deep into thought, giving you a crucial, brief window of time to turn and run for your life. Alternatively, leaning into Japanese societal politeness works wonders. If you confidently tell her, "I'm sorry, but I am in a hurry," or "I have a previous engagement," the spirit will reportedly bow, apologize for taking up your time, and let you pass. If words fail, you need a distraction. Kuchisake-onna is said to have a massive sweet tooth, specifically for hard candies like bekoemi, a traditional Japanese candy made of caramelized sugar, or kuromi, a black sugar candy. Some modern kids even suggest throwing a handful of Chupa Chups lollipops at her. When the candy scatters on the ground, she is compelled to stop and meticulously pick up every single piece, allowing you to escape into the night. But there is one word that is her ultimate weakness. A word you must scream 3 times in rapid succession if you want to repel her completely. Pomade, pomade, pomade. Why pomade? What does a greasy hair wax have to do with a murderous spirit? In the modern iterations of the legend, Kuchisake-onna wasn't a samurai's wife. Instead, she was a patient who underwent a botched plastic surgery procedure. The dentist or surgeon who accidentally mutilated her face was wearing an overwhelming amount of cheap, foul-smelling pomade in his hair. The scent became forever linked to her agonizing trauma. Screaming the word triggers a supernatural panic attack, causing her to falter or flee in terror. Some legends say, just writing the kanji for dog on your palm, an animal she supposedly fears, can also save you. Monsters are never just monsters. They are a reflection of the societies that create them. Renowned folklorist and academic Michael Dillon Foster has studied Kuchisake-onna extensively. He argues that yokai operate in an arena of opposites. They are traditional yet contemporary, ephemeral yet physical. Kuchisake-onna perfectly embodies the anxieties of modern Japan. First, let us look at the mask. By weaponizing the surgical mask, a symbol of public health, hygiene, and social courtesy in Japan, the legend perverts safety into danger. It preys on the fear of the anonymous urban stranger. You are surrounded by millions of people in Tokyo or Osaka, yet you are completely isolated. Anyone behind a mask could be a monster. More deeply, her story is a savage critique of beauty standards. Japan boasts the second largest beauty industry in the world, placing immense social pressure on women to maintain physical perfection. Her obsessive question, "Am I pretty?" highlights a toxic, pathological need for external validation. When she slashes the faces of her victims, she is violently rejecting the male gaze and the societal demands placed upon her. In a strange, twisted way, some sociologists view her as an anti-hero. She is the collected frustration of marginalized women, lashing out at a society that objectifies them, a chaotic, vengeful force reminiscent of a horror movie Harley Quinn. Furthermore, she represents the silenced victims of domestic abuse. In Japan, domestic violence was heavily stigmatized and largely treated as a private family matter until the Domestic Violence Prevention Act was finally passed in 2001. The origin of the samurai husband mutilating his wife is a horrific parable of patriarchal control and victim blaming. She is a physical manifestation of unresolved, silenced trauma walking the streets. A truly great urban legend refuses to be confined by geography. By the year 2004, the Slit-Mouthed Woman had crossed the sea and invaded the schoolyards of South Korea. But she evolved to fit a new culture. In South Korea, she became known as the Red Mask Lady. According to this localized lore, the woman was driven by a desperate desire to be more attractive and went under the knife. In a tragic reflection of South Korea's booming and highly competitive plastic surgery industry. The operation was horribly botched, leaving her with a grotesque Glasgow smile. She wears a blood-red surgical mask and stalks the subway stations at night. The Korean rules of survival also shifted. If she asks if she is pretty and you reply, "I don't know," it confuses her, but it comes with a terrifying consequence. She only rips one side of your mouth. Some Korean playground rumors claimed she was 5 stories tall, or that she had a boyfriend called the Blue Mask. The core fear remained exactly the same, but the monster had adapted her face to prey on an entirely new demographic. Today, Kuchisake-onna is a massive intellectual property. She has transitioned from whispered playground rumors to high-definition pop culture icon. She's been the subject of countless movies, most notably the 2007 cult classic card, The Slit-Mouthed Woman, directed by Keiji Shiraishi. She's even become a staple of eccentric B-movie crossovers, battling other urban legends in films like Kuchisake-onna vs Mary-san and Hikiko-san vs Kuchisake-onna. In video games, she is a relentless foe. In the survival horror game Ghostwire Tokyo, she appears as a terrifying enemy with a white coat and mask. But damage her enough, and she shifts into her final form, dropping the mask, her coat turning blood red as she lunges at you with massive shears. You can also find her haunting the 8-bit Junji Ito-inspired indie game World of Horror as the Scissor Woman. She's practically everywhere in manga and animes, though her most notorious appearance is the one you were never allowed to see. In the year 2000, the beloved anime Ghost Stories, or Gaku no Kaiden, planned to feature Kuchisake-onna as the main villain in its 3rd episode, titled Am I Beautiful? They even aired a 15-second teaser trailer at the end of episode 2. However, the animation studio received immediate, massive backlash from disability rights and support groups. They argued that the character's slit mouth too closely resembled a cleft palate, a real congenital condition, and that portraying it as a monstrous trait was deeply offensive and damaging to children. The network, Fuji Television, completely caved. The episode was pulled right before it aired, scrubbed from existence, and replaced with a hastily edited clip show. It has never been included in any DVD release or English dub. Kuchisake-onna became the monster so controversial, she was banned from television, yet she still finds ways to reinvent herself. In the recent hit manga Even If You Slit My Mouth, she is portrayed in a dark romantic comedy. The premise? Her supernatural powers are fading because modern kids no longer believe in urban legends. To save her existence, she enters an arranged marriage with a human high school boy. It's a brilliant meta, Commenters only exist as long as we keep talking about them. From a samurai's jealous blade in the 17th century, to a blood-soaked panic in 1979, to the digital realms of modern video games, Kuchisake-onna refuses to die. She is the physical embodiment of our darkest societal fears. She is the danger of vanity. She is the terror of the anonymous stranger in the city. She is the lingering scar of domestic violence, and a haunting critique of impossible beauty standards. As long as there are dark alleyways, as long as people cover their faces, and as long as society places a premium on physical perfection, the slit-mouthed woman will always have a place in the shadows, waiting for her next victim. So, the next time you are walking home alone, and the fog rolls in across the streetlights, if a tall woman in a trench coat steps into your path and asks you a simple question, remember your hard candies, remember the word pomade, and whatever you do, think very carefully about your answer.